also please make sure that you meet the parent and then have a conversations. And then if you're a parent, and if I'm speaking to parents right now, and then your child goes to the child care system or child care center, or even if you have a home visitor in your home-based program, make sure that you provide as much information about your child as possible, because that interaction, getting to know you and your child, will be crucial thank you, Gigi. It will be crucial to partner with your child's teacher and then have conversations and discussions in order to help your child to grow and develop. Yeah, so as I mentioned, thank you again, Dr. Green. As I mentioned, developmental domains are, again, the various versions of developmental domains, but I decided to make it clear and simple for the attendees, especially if we have parents here, to be clear and then take basic major developmental domains. And then developmental domains are critical areas of early learning and development that contributes to young children's readiness for school. So again, as I mentioned, it's a social and emotional development, language development, cognitive development, and perceptual and motor development. For example, if there could be different definitions, but for example, if you take language development, you might wonder where's the literacy. Very often, most of the time, literacy goes under it can have as a factor, as a subdomain, or as one of the indicators under language. As we know, the literacy is big and very important part of the language development. And then the same applies to perceptual and the motor development. If you work for Head Start, or if your child goes to the Head Start program, you will notice, or you will see that perceptual and the motor development, besides perceptual and motor development, they also talk about the physical development. And I will discuss that later. Can we move to the next one, please? And then I have descriptions of each developmental domains just to make you familiar what exactly they mean. So my social emotional development. So social development specifically refers to a child's ability to create and sustain meaningful relationships with adults and other children. So it's very important that we are not just talking about the adults, it's about peers too. And the infants and the toddlers develop relationship building skills and behaviors with important adults in their lives are crucial. It's main. Everything starts and begins with a building relationship. Child cannot strive and then develop and then do anything productive and be successful if you're not going to start with the social development, which again, as you see here, it's relationship based. Emotional development is another part of social emotional development, and it refers to a child's ability to express, recognize, and manage their own emotions, as well as they respond appropriately to others' emotions. So as you know, these early relationships teach young children how to express and interpret a wide range of emotions. We want to see our children show their excitement when they are happy. We want to see them upset if they are upset, and that's another sign the child is reacting to something upsetting. That another sign that you know that child is growing and developing and understanding. And then, or if child is upset when someone is, one of the peers is taking toy from him. So, or getting excited when mom comes to pick him up from work, if the child is at the child care. Or if you're a mom and listening to me, when you see child is excited, when you're telling him that you're taking him or her to the playground. So that's all very important. And very often we encourage our teachers, and of course to the parents as well, to talk about it, to label those emotions while you are having that conversation. While you are talking to your children, label these emotions, use the words. Very often would be great if you have a pictures, label those pictures, and then use lots of books. There are lots of great books to have a conversations about feelings and emotions. Next. Language development. Language development, as I mentioned, it also consists literacy. Language development refers to emerging abilities in listening and understanding. And this is receptive language. So whatever a child receiving, and it means listening and understanding, that's a receptive language. If child is using language when she or he is talking back or trying to talk back, if it is infant, even cues and all that, babbling, that's using language. So that's expressive language. Another one, cognitive development. This is big one. Cognitive development is all about reasoning, memory, problem solving, and then thinking skills that help your children to understand and organize their world. And then, of course, that's mainly for the infants and toddlers, and not only, but if you're gonna go and then talk about preschoolers, all the children, this evolves into mathematical thinking and the scientific reasoning. So everything about problem solving, mathematical thinking, pattern, if your child, for example, is working with the patterns or tries to understand what's going on when he or she is playing with the sand and water, this is all first stages of the cognitive development. And the big one, perceptual and the motor development. As I mentioned before, Head Start is defining this developmental domain differently. So they call it perceptual and motor and physical development. And it consists of 4 elements. So in this case, I have only 3 here. I really think that's a main, although I'm going to be talking about the 4th element. So perception. What does it mean? It refers to children's use of their senses to gather and understand information. And after they gather, they understand information and they analyze, they respond to the world around them. And the gross motor development, many of you know, it's support children's in fully exploring. It's about gross motor skills, fully exploring their environment and then interacting with people and the things. So, and when they're moving around or they're trying to move around, even crawling, that's gross motor development. And of course, that helps them to interact with the people, that helps them to explore the things, and that helps them to see more than instead just when they were just sitting in one place. And as it says here, it supports the development in all domains. And the fine motor development refers to using the small muscles that found in individual body parts, especially those in the hands and the feet. So if when child is trying to grasp the toy or shake, or tries to take a small pieces like a Cheerios by his or her hands, or tries to move his feet, this is all fine motor development. And of course, those skills are helping later the child to start grasping the pencils, and then start writing. So this is all crucial and then basic developmental milestones that the child needs to go through to be ready for the school. I decided to have infants and toddlers kind of divided into 3 age groups. Because like it says here, these age groups are reflecting common shifts and a transition in development. So as you see, birth to 9 months is one group, and then 8 to 18 months is the second group. And as you see, it's overlapping. And then 16 to 36 months is the final older toddlers group. And as you see, 8 and 9 months is overlapping, 18 and 16 months overlapping. So these overlapping months recognize, especially in infant and toddler age group, that how they are growing and developing at different rates. As I mentioned before, it's very important. It's very important that we understand that yes, there could be, there are some milestones that it's where it tells you or recommends you what a child should be achieving for this age group, but we also have to make sure and consider that there are children who achieve those milestones earlier or later. So that's why it's very important that we really watch closely the children and observe them, and then to make sure that we know the milestones, developmental milestones, what it's expected from each age group, so we know if there are any concerns, what to do with that. So I also wanted to make clear and make you aware that all these developmental domains are interlocking and then interacting. So one developmental domain will not happening in child's life without other one, or the other way around. For example, what do I mean? If child, for example, child is 9 months old, and then his vision is sharpened, and it means what? He can focus on the small objects, right? And then while he can focus on the small subjects, he's able to use his arms and the hands and then grasp those objects and get the interest to those objects, and then try to touch them and take them. And then that also helps him to coordinate eye and the hand. So everything comes together. So that's why it's important. Or for example, another case, when child starts walking, he can go and then watch his parents at home. Even if he just started walking, he's not placed in one place and just being around with his toys, right? He can see what the adults are doing or how they are interacting with each other. For example, at home, how mommy is cooking or talking or using different utensils. So that's the way you can see the child is using that experience, that information later when he or she is the toddler, and then goes and then imitates the adults, and then does very similar activities, what he's seen at home, what his parents are doing. Or the same could be if child attends the childcare, he's there, he can hear, he can listen, and he can imitate the teachers again. If they're reading the book, they could be great it could be great for them to imitate, and they know how to, that's how they're learning how to take the book and then how to go from page to page and explore. So those little examples gives you an idea how important it is, all these developments, and then knowing about it, and then knowing what to expect about each age group, so you know what to look for if you're a parent or the teacher. I don't want to talk just about development without not mentioning trauma, especially I was thinking about it and I decided to use opportunity while we are talking about development and concerns. I cannot not talk about trauma and how is it affecting the children. So as you see here, I have a definition of the trauma, and is any event or series of events that is perceived or experienced that undermines a child's sense of physical or emotional safety and has lasting adverse effects on the individual's physical, social, emotional, and spiritual well-being. We all know how trauma can be affecting the children, as adults as well, of course, and especially the children. If you consider the young children who don't speak, they don't know how to express their fears, they're not understanding what's going on around them when they see something in their parents' faces or in their parents' behavior. This all affects the children. And why is it important in this sense? So very often when child goes to trauma, most of the time, we know it because their behavior is changing. They are acting differently. They could be regressing. So for example, if you have a child who was potty trained, she could be starting bedwetting. Or there could be a child who was fine with drinking from cup, but now the child is regressing and then started drinking from a bottle or wants to drink from the bottle, or child who was independent and had a great social skills is clinging to the parent and then has a separation anxiety. All that could be a signs of the trauma. And I have here on the slide what could be causing those traumatic experiences and what are the risk factors. The list could be long, but I have it, I think, couple main factors, which is, of course, all of you agree with me, domestic violence, what child can't see home. Community violence, we know that's a really big problem here in DC. Homeless, we have lots of children, especially I work for Head Start and I know we deal with that a lot, and then or moving from home to another home or from one foster home to another one. So that's all could be really big problem for the child and affecting his well-being, emotional well-being. Incarcerated family member, very often, especially now during the COVID, we hear some of them are home and it's totally different dynamic in the house. And of course, physical or sexual abuse, that's a huge trauma for the child. And neglect, deprivation, especially now when because of the COVID, lots of organizations and lots of places are closed, and then people are losing jobs. The financial crisis could be affecting all that, and then there could be, because of that, there could be domestic violence, which child maybe never experienced before, or neglect or deprivation because mother or father is unhappy, they are struggling with themselves, and it affects the child. And of course, again, because it's a COVID epidemic, and there could be children in your families, or if you're a child care provider, you, I'm sure, know some families, some children that are really going through the loss and the grief. And that's, of course, the big problem for the child, and it's going to be tremendously will be affecting the child. So on the next slide, I don't know if it is possible to get a response from our participants, but I just had a question here. Children under age of 28 months cannot be impacted by trauma. Is it true or false? I don't know if it is possible to get the answers.
You may use the chat, or you could unmute yourself and talk.
I saw one false. Thank you. Thank you, Meg.
I definitely think that statement is false. And would venture, and based on my grandchildren's experience, not only under the age of 24 months, but within the womb, they were affected by trauma.
Thank you, Gladys. Thank you. You're correct. And then I get two more replies in the chat. Yes, of course. Child doesn't have to be 2-year-old to understand the trauma. Again, based on all the interaction at home or what they're hearing and listening. Very often, some adults think they don't think that the child is understanding all that, so they think that's fine, and they're not sharing that information, or at least at the child's level information, so the child can understand some basics, what's going on. So that even makes things worse for the child, not knowing, not understanding what's going on. It's even that raises the roof and then raises their tension in their brain, in their head, and that because again we are not sharing and we are not explaining, that really could be affecting them, and then I have here to show to you how it's gonna show, how it can. What kind of effects it could have and what could be the signs, what it could look like. Again, I have a very short list here, but there is a huge number of the signs, unfortunately, where you can detect the child is going through trauma and while changing the behavior. So I have only 2 age groups here, again, infants and toddlers. For infants, you can see that it could be the difficult of soothe or comfort, and they could be resisting to be held, or it could be the other way around. They could be really clingy and they wanted to be held again and again or all the time. It could be also child is not, or baby is not interested in play. That could be a red flag, especially if you know the child was playing before and was very playful and interested in different toys. For toddlers, it's even more. They're bigger size and much easier to recognize. Again, as I mentioned before, child usually is regressing, and then if you know a child was acting fine and then had a great relationship, for example, with his siblings, and he's now has a more tempered tantrums or is aggressive while he's playing, that could be a red flag. And then that child who was fine and happy to go back to school and was excited being around the children or his friends, now he has difficulties with separation. So he has separation anxiety. So that could be also a sign that you might, as a parent, or if you're a teacher and you know your children, could be thinking something is not right, something is going on. And then child could be drawn or aggressive. So it could be aggressive, but also it could be child who is very quiet, and very often we are missing child like that. They're very quiet in corner by themselves, but that child could be going through some trauma and the stress, and then we are not aware of that because he's not acting out, because he's not throwing the toys, he's not upset. And then, of course, they could be refusing to be comforted. So again, this is very short list, but there is, I can send as a handouts. It comes from the Office of Head Start. They have a long 2-page list with all the signs. Again, it could be connected with the feeding, child's willing to eat more or less, or sleeping, not sleeping well, or oversleeping, or overeating, or again, as we mentioned, the toiletry, and they could be going back and then bedwetting, or not using the diapers anymore, or pull-ups and then going backwards. So, and again, behavior is the biggest part, I guess, you can see during the interactions, what and then how can you what's going on with the child, and then how much support they could be needing when you're interacting with them, or if you see they interact with the other children. That could be a great observational moment for you to see if something is going on with the children. So that's why I have a here observation. I would like to briefly talk about observation, because when you talk about child development, milestones, what child can achieve or not, where is the child developmental, we cannot do, or even, of course, when we talk about trauma, we cannot do anything without having objective, proper observations, and not just knowing observations and doing objective observations. It's also really important what you're doing with that observation, and so you know why you are observing those children. So I have a couple definitions, but I really like the second one. I really think that observation can be described as paying close attention to a child's behaviors, interactions, activities, and the interests, and then noticing all aspects of the child's development. And then you can choose when do you want to observe the child. And of course, I would suggest that you should be observing child in different settings. If you're a mother at home, make sure you watch your child and observe the child while he is eating. If he's using utensils, or how he is using it, or if he has difficulties with it, or if there is a trauma, maybe he was using and not using anymore. Or if you're the teacher, or when the child is playing at home or at the school, at the child care, how he is acting, how he is interacting with the others, how he's using his fine motor skills or gross motor skills. So you could be observing child on the playground to see if he manages based on his milestones, if he's managing properly run up and down at the stairs, or kick the ball, or throw the ball. Or when children are in the dramatic area, housekeeping area, doesn't matter it's home or school, how they're doing. Are they using language? How much language? Do they lack the language? Are they able to interact with you and have a back and forth exchange? Again, it's for the older children, but I want to also highlight, because of that how important it is that you just don't sit and watch. Even if you're a parent, if you're a teacher, I think the key is to interact with the child, connect with the child, be there for the child, and then instead just sitting back and then taking notes and then go with your other duties. I really think sometimes, and it's not just me, science is saying, especially after you observe the child from a distance, they did an objective observation, and if you need to get additional information, make sure you go to the child, you connect, start playing with him or her, do some exchange, and then scaffold the child so you understand if child can do more than what he saw. Or if child needs support with this or with that skill. So that will give you more information. And of course, you can always go back and then make additional notes. And then all this question, all this, why I talked about it. So if we go now, why we do all this observation. So even if you do all that, what are you gonna do with that information? So as you see, I have here to learn about children, to individualize care if you're the teacher. And of course, it's the same for the families at home. If you have one, yeah, of course, you can work with one of your child, but if you have more than one, you have to make sure you know your child's needs, you know your child's skills, and excuse me, and then you know how to, you can notice everything your child can do or not do, and then use that information to apply if you're a teacher in specific activities. So it's individualized child activities, and then you help the child to develop those specific skills. Or if you're a mother, try to have a conversation with the teacher or home-based person, home visitor, to share your observations, your discoveries about your child, and then provide additional learning experiences to your child. And then be aware, and then it's really important that schedules and routines are very important for the child. And then last very important part why we do need to observe the children is what are we doing if we observe and we see there is a lack of some skills of developmental, or maybe you look at it and then you think it could be developmental delay. So that's another great reason. I think it's the main reason and that's why I talk so much. If there's developmental delay, what do you do? That's why the key and then really rigorous and objective observations are important, but what's the next? So what are the next steps? So besides just talking about the concerns, I would like to briefly discuss what are the next steps, especially if you live in DC, and I'm sure we all live here in DC. What do you do with your children? So very often, if again, your child goes to any childcare center, they should have some kind of developmental screening. And what's the screening? So that's a tool. It's a set of the tools, could be set of the tools, set of the questions, and that can identify children who would benefit from evaluation for potential developmental delays. And then, of course, this should be any developmental tool. I'm not talking about specifics right now, but any developmental tool should bring parent and then educator together if child goes again to the child care system, and then bring them together to have a conversation and then discuss every step and every milestone, and then see if child will be eligible for services or child should be referred further. It's very important that parents have their own things to say, because parents are the children's first educators, and then we have to make sure that we listen what the parents have to share about their child, and then you should come up together and agree what will work for the child, what will not. There could be the opportunities for you to sit down and discuss that maybe it's not time to refer, it's not clear child is referable, but you could be doing some more while child is in your classroom or at home in the home-based program. So what do? You, based on those concerns, for example, there are concerns in the language development, you are creating an individualized plan for that child, and then providing those specific activities that can enhance the child's skills and can achieve and that can progress, and make sure, of course, that's another big important part, that information, those activities, that approach and that plan, individual plan, is shared with the parents, so they can continue to do the same at home on both sides. So you work as a team at home or at the school to help the children. So I have here, just as a sample, one of the questionnaires, ages and the stages questionnaire. And it doesn't matter what you're going to be using. Many organizations are using, that's why I have it here. Strong Start is using it as well, Early Head Start. And I know now, I hear a lot that even pediatricians are using it. So I'm sure many of you, if you're just parent, and even if your child is not in any child care center, and then child is home with you, I'm sure many pediatricians already done and conducted this questionnaire with you. So it's for the age group from 0 to 5.5, and it's of course standardized, and what's the name? Is research-based, and then it's not only talks about the problems and the developmental concerns or the red flags, it also shows what are the child's strengths. So one great, I suggest, if there are some organizations, childcare centers, they don't have any screening tool, to use. I would suggest, because that's easy, user-friendly. The training is can be done in 1 hour, 2 hours. And it's very easy to understand for the parents as well. Actually, it was designed previously, in the beginning, it was designed for the parents. So every parent, you can go on the website, ASQsages.com website, and they can pull the questionnaire themselves based on their child's age group, and then they can do even by themselves this questionnaire and see if they think the child needs additional support and referral from the experts.
Okay, we have 2 minutes left. I just want to be mindful of everyone.
Thank you, Gigi. I'm sorry we started so late, and my apologies. I will be quick. So we can't skip that. Again, you have to make sure that we have to make sure that we talk to the parents that it's confidential, and that screening and all the information, and you have to have a consent from the parents to do it. But what will be the next steps? Again, if you're a parent and agreed with the pediatrician, or if you're a parent and agreed with the teacher who did the screening with you about regarding your child, and then the agreement is that we should move on further with the referral, what does it mean? So there is an idea, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, that's the law, and that moderates the requirements for states' early intervention program. And here in DC, our early intervention program had a strong start. So that's the organization is dealing with the children from 0 to 3, only 0 to 3, and then I can only tell you this is free. And then you can, even if you're not affiliated, if you're the mother not affiliated with any center or any program, you can go initiate yourself, and you can go to them, and I have it on the second page information about Strong Start, the contact information. So you can call them or email them or visit for additional information their website, and then you will be able to help your child just by yourself. And of course, if you're working for the child care system, there will be people who will be supporting you and advocating for you and for your child. And all the services, referrals, evaluations, that's going to be the next step, where the experts are going to go through some interviews and observations with you and with your child, and they're going to give you final answer in a report, evaluation report, and then we'll let you know if child needs to be continue with the services, provided services. And if child will be eligible for services, your child will receive, as it says here, individualized family service plan. And that plan is very easy and very clear to understand. And again, you're going to have a specialist who will be supporting you to understand plan clearly. And then every time the therapist is assigned to your child to improve those skills, they will be sharing after each session, they will be sharing verbally or in written the information and the progress your child is growing to. And so you're going to be able to track your child's progress. In some cases, they're working with the families directly at home, if that's your preference, or in some cases, they work in the classroom settings because child is there entire day, every day. So that's another natural environment for the child. So very often you will see children receiving services inclusively in the classrooms next to their friends, while they're with the friends and interacting with their friends. That's another program is the early stages. It's a part B. Again, if your child is already or almost 3 or at age 2 and 9, and you discover that your child needs additional evaluation because, for example, he still doesn't talk like 3-year-olds should be talking and cannot make a sentence sense, or cannot express his needs, and then you have a concern, you can, again, as a individual parent, can address them. And again, I have information for you there. But if you are, again, if your child is in the child care system and the child is over age 2 and 9, they will be referring child now not to strong start, they will be sending referral to early stages. Again, this will be happening only in a collaboration with the parents, only if parent is gonna write the consent form. And in this case, it will be if child is eligible for services, individualized education plan will be created, and it's going to be explained to the parents what it's going to take. And especially if you're going to decide to take child to DCPS, what school would be appropriate for your child, and then what kind of services, how often, and then who will be providing services. All that will be shared with you. And again, they will be giving you written or verbal information, or both, about your child's progress, and you will be able to track his progress. That's what you do with the child if you have a developmental concerns. Oh, it's already 4 o'clock. Actually, that's the mainly I wanted to discuss. If you have a concerns, developmental concerns, what could be done and what you could be doing, whether you're a parent or teachers. I hope teachers also have a better understanding, or as a refresher, what do you do in which cases if you have a child with some developmental concerns. Please, I really think the bottom line here is to have a relationship with the families, and then have those conversations about child, and that getting to know the child is not enough. You need to get to know the family to better have a better understanding what are the dynamics in the family, and the consider the cultural differences or linguistic differences, and make sure that you work as a team and help child to grow and succeed. That's all. I'm gonna stop here, and then I would like to know if anyone has any additional questions. Any questions? In chat, or unmute yourself. Gigi, you are in chat.
Yeah, no one is in the chat. So if nobody has any questions, we're gonna end here, and we will see you guys on Friday for our next session.
Okay. Thank you.
Friday we have 2, one at 11 and one at 3.
Okay. Thank you for listening, and my apologies for messing up in the beginning with this video, and I will get better. I need more experience with it. And if you have any additional questions, you can always email us, and we will provide you with some handouts, for example, about the trauma or any other specifics. Thank you. Thank you to you all.
Okay, bye-bye.